Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
Hey you, podcast listener, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, president of Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting and emailrevealer.com. I'd like to welcome a new sponsor. This show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com or LifeChangeTea.com. You can find it at both websites. I just got this new tea in the mail, Life Change Tea, and it helps you lose weight, maintain perfect health, cleanse your body from intruders, reduce constipation, and maintain great digestion. Just started using this stuff 3 days ago, and I'm loving it. I get up in the morning. Everybody knows I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and instead of drinking coffee now, I have a little glass of this tea here. I drink it cold, and I have full of energy. I skip my morning coffee, and I think I'm losing a little bit of weight. I'll give a little update on that Friday night. I'll tell you how I'm doing with the GetTheTea.com, LifeChangeTea.com. Okay, Really excited about my show today. We had on Vince Font a while back. A cool guy. I like him a lot. And we talked about American Sons, the untold story of the Falcon and the Snowman. Everybody knows the Falcon and the Snowman, one of the greatest movies of all time with Sean Penn. You know, I love that movie. I don't know who my friends are anymore. I love that movie. Okay, so we had Sean Penn on, and I've been bugging him for years. Get me Christopher Boyce, who's the Falcon. We got the next best thing. We got Kate Boyce, who helped co-write the book of American Sons, the untold story of the Falcon and the Snowman. She's the wife of Christopher Boyce, who's the Falcon. And she's working on a whole new deal right now coming up. Hero to Zero, a Navy SEAL's true life journey. And then that's about Kristen Beck, who used to be Christopher Beck. And I believe he's the first or only Navy SEAL ever to go through a transgender, do they still call it sex change? I guess they do, right? A sex change. Transition, right? Okay. So welcome to the show, Kate Boyce.
Thank you very much for having me.
What do they call that now? They used to call it sex change when I was a kid. What they call it
transitioning.
Transitioning. Yeah. I actually have a friend right now who's transitioning from female to male. She's like 19 years old, maybe 20 years old by now. I've known her whole life. It's kind of, unsettling to tell you the truth. Now, tell us about yourself, though. Who is Kate Boyce?
Oh, good Lord. That is just like the most difficult question in the world. There's so many different parts of me. I think my favorite definition of myself would be a cisgender, middle class, white female who got involved because of the 60s and the 70s with every radical group known to mankind, probably, and understood from an early point in life what discrimination against other people looked like. I think it's because my upbringing was so wonderful that it allowed that visual to be able to see that other people weren't having a life as good as mine. And so it kind of launched me into being that self-propelled radical and working for marginalized individuals from African American to LGBTQIA.
Very interesting. I actually grew up with the Yippies myself. I'm 55 years old. So I was a member of the Yippies back in New York City from like 1977 until about 1982, 84. So I've been on the left my whole life myself. Radical, I guess you can call it.
Well, my favorite group was the SDS and the Weather Underground. So, yeah, a little before your
time. Christopher, well, with his parole conditions and stuff like that, is he allowed to be associated with you?
Yeah, that would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Is there a reward?
He's actually not on parole. I will tell you that. After 5 years of being on parole, I petitioned and had him removed from parole.
Oh, very nice.
He has been off parole. He's been out for 15 years. He's been off parole for 10 years. And yeah, it's a good life.
Now, and how did you meet Christopher Boyce? Was he in prison? Was it before he went to prison? What's the story there?
He was definitely in prison. He definitely was. I was working for a law firm. I was working for a pro bono law firm that dealt with people in prison, a lot of those people in California that were on death row, that were being commuted at that time, and they were being released from prison. So they would come to our office and we would help them kind of put their lives back together, gather identification, learn how to apply for jobs, be able to face an interview, things like that. I enjoyed that. But after work on Fridays, we would all kind of sit around and shoot the bull and talk about cases that were in the news. And one of the cases that was in the news was the Falcon and the Snowman.
And then what? You went down to the prison to interview them?
Oh gosh, no. No, actually, it was almost a bet, and I have to tell you that it was years afterward that I actually met Chris, because my focus at that time, once I started looking into that case, because I was intrigued. I mean, let's face it, who wouldn't be?
Oh, it's fascinating, yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And the character that is Andrew Dalton Lee instilled pity in me. It instilled rage in me. There were a lot of feelings with that. So I got involved. I sent Dalton a message to the prison and asked him if he would talk to me. And some of the guys that I was working with, it became kind of a bet. It was like, yeah, you'll never get this guy out of prison. And I said, well, I got to at least try. And so that's how that started. And that was back in 1980.
Fascinating. Why don't you remind me we did a whole 2 hours on this with Vince Vaughn.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, about the Falcon and the Snowman, the whole story about the book. But why don't you remind the audience what that whole controversy was about? How did they wind up in prison? What were they accused of doing? The whole story.
So Christopher Boyce took a job at TRW back in the mid-70s, I want to say 73, 74. Not all that long out of high school. His dad at that time was the head of security for McDonnell Douglas Aircraft. And so he knew the people at TRW and was able to help Chris secure a job. With little to no background investigation, they stuck this 20-year-old in the Black Vault, which was handling CIA documents and CIA secrets, which, I mean, I have to laugh at now. It's so preposterous. But it was the whole Watergate era. It was all of that stuff. Chris was fine with his job until one afternoon when a Twix came over that the CIA was interfering in Australian elections and trying to oust Gough Whitlam to put their own man in charge and in power. And it set him off. And I have to, I want to be fair about this. I mean, I'm married to the guy. I got him out of prison, but let's be really kind of fair about it. He went about it the wrong way. They both went about it the wrong way. They should never have taken secrets to the Russians. I personally would have done a Woodward and Bernstein and gone to the press. But as Chris said years later, he didn't really think anybody was going to listen to somebody of his particular age with no background. So.
Now, TRW, wasn't that like a credit reporting agency?
Well, TRW, that's just one of a multitude of things that TRW does. TRW is, in fact, a credit reporting agency. TRW also is the manufacturer, the corporation that manufactures the seat belts for Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and Volvo. TRW is also one of the nation's largest CIA Black Vault operatives.
So TRW is in existence today? Under what name?
Yes, it is, in Redondo Beach.
Under what name, TRW?
Under TRW, I believe.
Do they still do credit reporting? No, right?
I don't think they do credit reporting anymore. I think mostly they're doing CIA work.
Now, that's fascinating. So that means that the TRW, this famous credit reporting agency, was working for the CIA.
Well, I think they were CIA before they were actually credit reporting agencies.
That's fascinating. I had to look into that because let me tell you something. There's only 3 major credit reporting agencies, and they're the only ones allowed to collect credit data and report it back. Everyone else who's a CRA needs to purchase it from them and resell it and then do the work for them, correct any errors. So it's just the racket that they got going on. These credit reporting agencies is just fascinating to begin with. And now that you tell me that it's a CIA operation, is mind-blowing.
It is a little bit mind-blowing when you think about it, because so you have TRW in Redondo Beach that actually had spy satellites on their facility. So it's a little touchy. If you do a quick Google search and just type in like TRW CIA, yes, what comes up is the CIA web pages and all about Boyce's testimony.
So that's the only time it's been leaked out is because of Boyce.
Right.
Oh, this is terrifying. I don't know if I can handle it at 12 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon. Okay. Oh.
Sorry to burst your bubble on that one, but everybody's watching us.
Yeah, that's serious business.
That's why Chris and I were so supportive of Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
Because it needed to be said that the NSA is listening to you. It needed to be said that the CIA is reading what you write. And in fairness, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm kind of, I take things with a grain of salt and I do my own investigation work. But I will say I have no faith in the CIA and the NSA.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they're having a great time with this conversation.
Yeah, I'll use a fake name as we continue. Call me Joe. Oh boy. So now Chris said, and he comes up with this intercept, this transmission about the Australian election, but he couldn't. He was he was too smart to do this himself, to contact the Russians himself. So he had this drug smuggler friend who had to do it for him.
Yeah, he made the worst mistake in his life. He brought Andrew Dalton Lee into it. And sadly, Dalton's life was his drug business. Dalton was not the popular kid in school. And I think that he Chris was his best friend. And Chris, to this day, and to Chris's credit, I will tell you, doesn't say anything negative about Dalton. He's, he will calmly say to me, hey, I loved the guy. He was my best friend. But I think that had it not been for Dalton, this probably wouldn't have ended up in a federal prison.
Well, yeah, from the movie, yeah, you would get that impression. Yeah. Now,
that whiny little part in the movie where Dalton's in the airport and he's like, I don't know who to trust. The one you just quoted.
Yeah.
So not Dalton Lee.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, no.
Then give us an idea. What's he really like?
Dalton was a member of the Young Republicans. He was a Nixon supporter during those twilight years, all those years ago. He is he's a very strong individual. I will give him that. He is a very strong individual. He has a brilliant mind, and he's just not this whiny, weaselly little portrayal by Sean Penn.
And you say he was a Nixon supporter. No wonder he went into crime. Now, now I also heard too, doing the research for the last show, was that actually Sean Penn hired him as an assistant, right?
Yes, he did.
After he got out of prison.
He did, yes.
Do you know what he was doing, how that went?
Well, of course I know what he was doing. I was there.
Yeah.
He was just kind of a gopher. When you're in a halfway house, you have exactly 10 days after getting into the halfway house to get yourself a job of some sort. And they don't care whether it's working at McDonald's or, running as a CEO for a major corporation. You just need to be employed because 25% of your wages go to the halfway house. So Sean, after friends and family reached out, Sean said, well, heck, I'll just hire him and he can come to work for me and it'll solve that problem. Sean and I had actually a fairly decent relationship. He spent some time with me when they had decided to do the movie. And so he and I met in Redondo Beach and we talked for hours about the making of the Falcon and the Snowman.
And what do you make of his politics?
Well, I'm going to reserve judgment on Sean. Sean is Sean's own person, and he's comfortable in his skin, and that's what's important. I try not to judge people based on their politics.
Okay.
I do support his politics. They differ slightly from mine, and the way of going about them differs slightly from mine. But let's face it, I'm not in the middle of a movie screen, and I'm not the one that got an Academy Award and can stand up there and talk politics. I have to be the little person on the sidelines that just battles everything the hard way.
Right.
And I find movie stars have it a little easier than we do.
But do you think you have to compromise your principles in order to get to that position where you can stand on the Academy Awards stage and make announcements?
I don't know. I just know that I don't compromise my principles for any reason, ever.
Okay. So now Chris and Dalton Lee, they go into this business selling these secret stuff, the codes and stuff like that, right? Now, were they making good money doing that?
No. And I want to be really clear about this. They weren't selling codes.
Okay.
And this is where there was a disconnect, and this is where there is still a disconnect. I still hear from people literally on a daily basis who say things to me like, your husband should have been executed for treason.
Right.
And that's hard to take. It's hard to take from a humanist standpoint, let alone a wife's standpoint. What the Russians received were KH-11 crypto cards. Those crypto cards are used and out of date the moment they come out of TRW. Those crypto cards could never have been used to gain access to American secrets, never cost American lives, never did any of that, never had to reroute satellites because of them, none of it, because the codes that go along with the KH-11 crypto cards were never provided. Chris steadfastly refused to provide them.
I want to back up a bit because you mentioned before, and I let it slip away, that TRW had their own satellites. What are these satellites used for?
Well, they were CIA satellites. And one of the satellites in question, of course, was the one that they were, the project that they were convicted of, although that never got anywhere. I don't know if the satellites were launched. Well, I know that a couple of the satellites were launched. They were spying on Russia. The Pyramider document, the Pyramider project, they said was designed so that we could actually see a cat walking on a roof in Soviet Union.
And that was 40 years ago. So when you question Chris about the Pyramider project and what it was a black vault project. It was never meant to fly. It was in plans only. There was a scale model of the satellite that was built, and what that satellite actually would transpose to today in 2018 is an iPhone. Wow.
That was the capability of that satellite.
Wow. Okay. Now, what about all the stuff you see in the movie about Dalton Lee going to the Russian embassy and all these adventures over there in Mexico? Is all that accurate?
Oh, it is, yes.
Really?
Yes, it is, sadly. The torture when they arrested him the torture in the movie does not begin to explain how bad the torture was in real life.
That's when he was arrested in Mexico, and U.S. intelligence was down there too, torturing him?
I don't know that U.S. intelligence was torturing him. I know that U.S. intelligence was giving him drugs. He was a heroin addict by that time. He was taking large amounts of heroin. And the U.S. intelligence group and the State Department was trying to get him off heroin so that they could get him back across the border. And they were giving him a combination. Now, they deny this, and it's hard to deny this because I actually have the pill vials still all these years later.
Wow.
The U.S. group was giving him a combination of Meloril and one other medication to, quote unquote, withdraw him from heroin. And the combination of the two drugs actually had the same effect as the heroin. So it was a nightmare for Dalton Lee. And you know, again, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. I understand that. But I think that the torturing of another human being is wrong under any circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you're saying that when he was held in jail in Mexico on these charges, U.S. government was giving him drugs while he was there in jail in Mexico?
I think they were trying to withdraw him from the heroin DTs or whatever heroin addicts go through. And they were giving him a combination of pills that had exactly the same effect as heroin. So needless to say, Dalton wasn't talking to anybody.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's even a legal procedure to do that. Like, how do they have the authority? You know,
I don't know that they do have the authority. I mean, he's an American citizen, but he's an American citizen in a Mexican jail.
Right.
And pretty much the rule of thumb is that when you go into another country and you get arrested, there's very little that the American government can do for you. And that's an interesting fact because people think, well, I'll just go to the U.S. embassy or I'll just call the embassy. It doesn't work that way. There's little that the American embassy can do for you in any other country when you've broken the law.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of torture, physical torture, were they putting him through?
I know that, God, I can't even believe I'm about to say this on radio. I know that they took a sword and sliced open one of his testicles.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I knew that was going to hurt every man listening.
Yeah.
I know that they did try to drown him in a toilet. I know that they did just beat him senseless. They just had his hands, his wrists and his ankles handcuffed together. He's a small man, which made that even more uncomfortable. And they left him to sleep that way. I know that they deprived him of clean food and water. He was a mess. He was a mess.
Okay, that's horrible. And then how did Christopher get arrested then? What, did Boyce, not Boyce, did Dalton Lee rat him out?
I don't believe that Dalton would have ever ratted him out. I think that basically the American government, the FBI and the CIA knew full good and well what was going on before either of these two were arrested. And me personally, my belief after 40 years of research into this thing is that these arrests were a complete setup to suit the CIA and to suit the FBI and the United States government. So they waited till Dalton went to Mexico and they arrested him. They charged him with dissemination of information, the Pyramider documents, which those documents, by the way, never got to the Russians ever at any time. They went right back to TRW and right back to the CIA. They arrested Chris at a turkey ranch in Riverside where he had been living, not in an open field flying his Falcon. And they know where they live. They know what they're doing. They just closed in.
And you said to suit the FBI and in what way?
Well, I think that when it comes to making an arrest, and come on, I mean, let's face it. If the FBI is going to make an arrest, they don't just go kick down a door and arrest somebody. They do kind of like to figure out where that person's going to be, how the arrest is going to be able to be made easily and to the best benefit of everybody involved. Not to hurt the person that they're arresting, not to have FBI agents get hurt. And that's how they do things. So I think that they had been watching him for quite some time. And they just, after Dalton was arrested, I think it was 4 days after Dalton was arrested, 5 days after Dalton was arrested, they swooped in and grabbed Boyce.
Now, you said that the information they were selling didn't have a lot of value.
It had no value.
Had no value. So then could the FBI or the CIA have arrested them earlier?
Oh, sure. They were stealing documents and removing them from TRW. So, yes, of course. They could have arrested them and charged them with that, but that never happened.
Because they wanted to arrest them. Or maybe they weren't following up to see who they were selling it to with Russia.
Well, that's quite possible. There were a lot of little tidbits that nobody could ever make sense of.
Oh, let's hear those.
Well, if you followed the trial, there were parts of the trial that had to go in camera because they were so top secret that it couldn't be testified to in open court. So I've always been I have all the trial transcripts. So I was always very curious about some of the stuff that was held in camera. One of the interesting things that happened during the trial was that the FBI fingerprint experts came forward and explained that they had found Andrew Dalton Lee's fingerprint inside of the safe in the black vault.
Right.
He had never been to TRW.
Vince told me that. It's fine. Right. How did that happen?
That's the point. He had never in his life been in TRW. He had never been to Chris's workplace, had never even been on the grounds at TRW. And yet there's a fingerprint?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
That always stuck with me. And that was one of the things that bothered me greatly about Andrew Dalton Lee's conviction. I think that Dalton actually got convicted mostly just because he was stupid. I think they were out looking for Chris. I think that was the connection they wanted.
What other little things made no sense? Anything else?
Oh my gosh.
Well,
yeah, I guess what never made sense to me was the fact that they were charged with stealing the Pyramider documents and transporting the Pyramider documents to the Russians. Well, the Russians never got the Pyramider documents. And I don't know if Vince told you this little fact, but I'm going to tell you how crucial the Pyramider documents were.
Okay.
Andrew Dalton Lee served 20 years in prison for the Pyramider documents. Christopher Boyce spent 25 years in prison. He got a 40-year sentence. Dalton got a life sentence. The Pyramider documents during the trial were so sensitive that the CIA moved a giant safe into Kenny Kahn's office, Dalton's attorney. And the Pyramider documents resided in that safe. Every morning, 2 CIA agents would come with the aluminum briefcase, handcuffed to their arm. They would put the documents in there and they would take them to court. The documents were never released during any of the court hearings, and they were held in camera only for the judge's eyes. Got all that?
Yeah.
After the trial, the CIA came and they moved out the safe. After the boys had been convicted, they moved out the safe. When they moved out the safe, they left Pyramider documents and still listed as eyes only, beyond top secret. They were eyes only, left them sitting in the middle of the floor of the attorney's office.
Accidentally or on purpose?
I guess on purpose.
Oh my God. It's just unexplainable.
Those documents, and I check this frequently, those documents have never been declassified.
But the lawyer still has them in his possession.
No, the lawyer doesn't have them.
Destroyed them? Came to you.
I can't say where they are because it would be a federal crime.
We don't need any more problems.
No. I don't need to go to prison for espionage.
Yeah. No, because you don't have someone on the outside to help you get out. Now, what about so they actually went to trial. There was a trial. They put up a defense.
Yeah.
What was their defense?
Andrew Dalton Lee's defense? Well, Andrew Dalton Lee's defense was to blame it all on Chris.
Oh, no.
And Chris's defense was to blame it all on, everybody else and Andrew Dalton Lee.
So basically, the other guy did it.
Yeah. I think Chris felt that he was backed into a corner. You have a father that's a former FBI agent and the head of security at McDonnell Douglas and has multitudes of CIA contacts. And I think it was just so overwhelming for him. But I think in his heart, Chris always expected to be caught, always expected to be punished.
All right.
I think it wasn't a surprise to him.
Now, just to clarify again, a lot of people think when you see the end of the movie, you think that these guys got the death penalty for treason, but they weren't charged with treason. What were they charged with again?
They were charged with violation of the espionage laws, and espionage is not a death penalty offense.
Right. So, and they each one got 20 years, the other one got 25 years.
No. Andrew Dalton Lee received a sentence, which at the federal level is minimum 10, maximum 30. And Christopher Boyce received a 40-year sentence and then added on to that with bank robberies and escape.
Right. Now, when I did the last show, I got a whole bunch of messages saying that Christopher Boyce received special treatment while he was in prison. Like he was housed at a gym or something. What do you know about that? Huh?
Received special treatment?
Yeah.
I wonder what that defines out as. Or what would that look like?
Well, that he was housed in a gym. He wasn't housed in a regular cell like the other inmates.
Absolutely untrue.
Untrue. Okay. Because that's out there. You've heard that before, right?
I haven't heard that before, interestingly enough. Absolutely untrue. For the most part of his confinement, he was held in solitary.
Then how was he able to escape?
Well, at the beginning of his confinement, he wasn't held in solitary. He was at Lompoc.
Okay.
But Lompoc at that point Lompoc had gone from being a federal correctional institute. So when it's an FCI, I mean, you have visitors, family was able to come in the early days. I mean, they could actually bring in lunch, all that kind of stuff. As it started to get more restrictive, Lompoc became a USP, United States Penitentiary. So, and if you've ever seen the institution that he actually escaped from, it's pretty foreboding. So he certainly was not held in a gym. He was in a maximum security United States Penitentiary. He just outwitted them, which is why he ended up, after his rearrest, spending so much time in lockdown. It was torture, and they did it because he did something that they never could figure out. And every day, the Bureau of Prisons wanted to know, how did you do it? How did you escape? How were you able to do this? And he wouldn't tell.
That's what I want to hear, too. How was he able to do it? Tell us how he got out. How did he do it?
In our book, there is actually a diagram along with photographs that were taken by another inmate of Chris at all of the little areas where the United States Bureau of Prisons defenses were down. Chris has a very militaristic mindset. I don't think that there's a military history book that he doesn't know or hasn't read. He knows every battle from the Civil War on, and that's how he plots things out. He's very careful, and so that's what he did. He didn't just jump in to try to do something.
Okay, but that brings up a good question too, because now he never served in the military, did he? Or did Dalton Lee?
No, neither.
Now, how come? Wasn't there a draft at that time?
There was a draft at that time, but you're talking about two kids who were fresh out of high school.
Okay. And I guess they were in college. They got it deferred because they went to college.
Take the draft in 70. I'm trying to remember. You would think I would remember that off the top of my head. I think we started to curtail draft numbers in 1974.
Yeah, 73, 74, right there,
Yeah. So while they both would have registered for selective service at age 18, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would have gotten a draft number.
Okay. And were they in the ROTC, anything like that?
No.
What about any kind of what were their majors in college?
Well, Dalton didn't go to college. Chris was a history major.
History major, okay.
And actually has his bachelor's degree in history.
And what school did he go to?
He graduated from Hamlin University in Minnesota.
Hamlin in Minnesota, okay. All right. Now, back to this escape. Did he have help? Did you know him around the time of the escape?
No, I swear to God, I didn't.
I want to get that reward.
I know, yeah, right. He was, I will tell you, there was a fortunate streak here. One of the inmates that Chris did time with was a gentleman named Calvin Robinson. And Calvin Robinson helped protect Chris because, I mean, Chris was a little white boy in prison in his early 20s. And there were people gunning for him. So Calvin became his friend and Calvin protected him. Calvin, years later, went on to be fairly well known for having like 340 tons of pot under the Golden Gate Bridge and was rearrested in 1983. But it was Cal that, after Chris escaped, told him, where he needed to hide and got him to Idaho.
So you didn't explain to us exactly. He was able to breach a wall and go through a ditch or something like that. Wasn't there like a ditch he rolled through, something like that?
Let me tell you the humor of Christopher Boyce, and I think about it, and honestly, it is humorous. So Christopher, first of all, got himself on the movie committee so that he could show Escape from Alcatraz.
Okay.
Then he got himself assigned to the art department so that he could make paper mache. And so he made a paper mache dummy of himself. Then he got himself on the grounds crew and ended up in a tiny little sub-drain. If you look at the picture of the sub-drain, I mean, I'm fairly thin and I couldn't fit in that thing. So, I mean, he's very systematic all the way through here. And that's exactly what he did. And then he breached the wall where he knew that he couldn't be seen, where they were building a new guard tower.
And all these documents and diagrams and pictures can be found in American Sons, The Untold Story of the Falcon and the Snowman?
Absolutely.
Is that the newest version?
It is the newest version, yes.
Okay. Now,
it's the 40-year anniversary, that's...
Now, Vince Vaughn tells me this story, that after he gets out of this prison, that he hides out in the woods for 30 days on his own, like eating nuts and berries. Is that the story?
Well, he was eating nuts and berries, and he had a practice. He wouldn't seek out bugs, but if one landed on him, it was fair game. So, yeah, that's what he did.
And so he was living on his own out there for 30 days. Was he building fires and stuff like that? How come they couldn't find him in those woods?
Well, first of all, you're talking about the Santa Ynez Mountains, which is a huge landscape. It's pretty easy to get to hide and get lost up there.
Okay, so for 30 days, no food, right? No water, no way to clean himself up and stuff, right?
Right. Streams.
Streams, okay, but still you're not shaving, right?
Right.
You're roughing it, okay? And then he was able to be picked up as a hitchhiker. Someone picked him up hitchhiking?
Sure, it was the 70s. So actually, that time it was the 80s.
So he had no help? No one he knew came and picked him up?
Nobody he knew came and picked him up.
And then where'd he go to right away? This guy Calvin Robinson told him a safe house he can go hide out at?
He went from the Santa Ynez Mountains north to the not the Bay Area, but close enough, and met up with Calvin. And then Calvin got him from California to Idaho, to Bonners Ferry, Idaho, where he was with Gloria White, who was Calvin's former wife.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, did they have a little romance or just
Oh no, Gloria's since gone. She's passed on.
Comrades in arms. Okay. Now, then he takes off on this bank robbery profession.
Yeah.
Yeah. Describe that.
Yeah, that's not my happy spot.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give him 2 snaps. I said to him one afternoon, "Why the hell did you rob banks?" And he said, "Well, I couldn't go to work at 7-Eleven and I needed money." Okay, well, I get it, but still, I think he regrets the bank robberies more than he regrets anything else because he scared people. He truly scared tellers. And as gentle as he tried to be, you're holding a gun on people. I will tell you that 9 out of 10 of those robberies, the gun was unloaded. I interviewed those tellers before I went to the parole commission to seek, the appeal that finally released him. And I have gotten no negative comments from any of the tellers that were robbed.
Okay. How many bank robberies did he do?
Well, he pled guilty to 3.
Oh, okay, 3. And how many did he really do?
By my estimate, I think there were 24.
Really? My
yeah.
goodness. And they couldn't pin him. They had no matching witnesses or anything or cameras or anything to match him to those other 20?
Well, in those days, if you think back to like 1980, in those days it was black and white Polaroid pictures
Right.
that were scanning the bank lobbies. Now it's all digital, and they'd be able to catch you just very quickly. But I mean, I actually have one of the original photographs that came out of the machine that shows him robbing the bank. And the photo is so grainy and so bad. I'm surprised anybody could find. I mean, I wouldn't have noticed him if he was standing next to me.
Actually, nowadays, they don't even call the cops.
Yeah.
They just hand over the money now because they don't keep such a little amount of money in the drawer.
Right.
They just, maybe that's just here in Vegas, but that's what they do here in this neighborhood. I know for a fact that they just hand over the money, and no alarms, no nothing.
The average bank robbery in the United States takes a haul of $700 or less.
That's right.
As a mandatory minimum sentence of 25 years. I don't know about you, but, I got better things to do with 25 years.
Yeah, and I hear you. Now also, too, what year did the movie come out?
The movie came out in 84.
Okay, so 84. And when did he get caught and recaptured?
He was recaptured in August of 81. He escaped in January. He escaped January 20th, 1980. Was recaptured August 21st, 1981. I can't believe I remembered those dates.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, how come? Because the story's much more interesting. When you think the guy gets out, he breaks out of prison, he's robbing banks. Why didn't they include that in the movie?
Well, I think the movie was the focus for the movie was the book, the original book, Falcon and the Snowman, which of course certainly didn't concentrate on what happened afterward.
Yeah, but you think, they could have wrote another chapter on the book and released it, and then I guess maybe they purchased the rights or whatever.
Right.
Okay. How did he get recaptured?
He was turned in.
Oh, really? Who turned him in?
Yeah, he was turned in. The gentleman that he was robbing banks with that were kind of co-conspirators in the bank robbery were a couple of brothers, and they, in fact, turned him in for the $50,000 reward.
Well, then, in turn, didn't he turn them in for the bank robbers?
No.
No. So they're still out there running around?
Well, one of them's on death row in Idaho for killing a cop. So they weren't the nicest people on the planet. I had a great friend, Denny Barron, who was a United States Marshal. He was the supervising marshal in the Seattle office. And he was actually the one that captured Christopher Boyce. And he and I met years after that. But I liked Denny. And he said that had they not been turned in, or had Boyce not been turned in, they probably would never have found him. Mm. They were sitting in Port Angeles, Washington, which is a tiny little town. The U.S. Marshals were in Port Angeles, and they were there for 2 full weeks before they even spotted him.
Wow. So now, did he go to trial? Well, I guess the escape is cut and dried, right? And right. So how does that work? You go to trial.
The escape is cut and dry. So he got on a federal escape. The maximum sentence is 5 years.
Really?
He received 3 years from Judge Leidick at the district court in Los Angeles. The bank robberies, during the bank robbery trials, he was involved in the trial for about, I want to say 2 weeks worth of trial when all of a sudden he pled guilty, which shocked everybody. But the truth of the matter is that he pled guilty to keep Gloria White from being roped into the whole thing. She allowed him to stay at her house, and yes, she helped him. She was not a conspirator, and he wanted to protect her. And it's just the way Chris does things. He would have done that. So if you're not
going to get another 5 years for escape, it's foolish not to try, right?
Well, that's my feeling, but there's an awful lot of inmates who die trying.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
If you look at the history of escapes from Lompoc Penitentiary, the escape just prior to Boyce was Leonard Peltier.
Oh, really?
And Leonard lasted all of 4.5 days on escape status.
Yeah, I interviewed his son.
Yeah, I worked on the defense team for a while, but they don't listen really well, and he becomes a martyr for people that want him to be there, and that's the end of that.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. We had petitions trying to get him out before Obama left office, because now there's no hope. There's no way we can get a pardon or any kind of.
Well, there's a way to get him out, but nobody wants to hear it. So,
real quick, how do you get him out?
Well, the way you get him out is not to make it front and center at every single one of his parole hearings. He's an outlaw prisoner, so he has a parole hearing every 24 months. So what routinely happens is the American Indian movement and all of his supporters get out there in the parking lot and they start calling CNN and the news services, and it goes on the wire, and this is ridiculous. This is not what the Parole Commission wants to see. What they want to see is what I like to call the mea culpa, the act of contrition, which is exactly why Chris and Dalton are out and why Calvin Robinson's being released soon. There's a right way and a wrong way to do a parole hearing, and the American Indian movement has been served by having Leonard Peltier in prison.
Right. Yeah, I can hear what you're saying there, Now, this is about the time after Christopher Boyce is convicted on these extra charges, bank robbery and stuff, they put him back. This is about the time you get in touch with him?
I was in touch with Dalton, and there was a moment in Dalton's life where he thought that I was aligned with Christopher Boyce. Talk about paranoia. But, that's just the way he thought. I spoke to Chris for the first time in 1981, not all that long after he was rearrested, when they got him to Marion Federal Penitentiary, or after he was stabbed. That's when he and I became people who know each other. That's the best way to put it.
Okay, that's when you became acquainted.
Yeah.
On your first date, right? Well, when did the romance start? Let's get into that.
Well, I think the romance started for Chris in the very beginning, but it didn't start for me. I never intended to get married, so it came as a complete shock to me as I was standing there and saying I do. He has a way about him. He's very convincing. He figured that from the very beginning, if I got him out of prison, we were going to live happily ever after.
Yeah, I guess he was right, though, right?
Well, here we are 15 years later. We're still married.
Yeah, it seems like you have a nice life, too. It's telling me off the air. You got the chickens and the snakes and the birds and, the whole factory going on there. Right? The 5 dogs, It seems like you guys are happy. Up there in a nice part of the country, that's for sure. So how'd you get him out?
Have a good life, yeah.
Yeah. How'd you get him out?
How did I get him out? Well, I got Dalton out first. Okay. There was no way that Chris was going to get out unless I could get Dalton out, because Dalton had a life sentence. So it took me 20 years to get Dalton out. And the way that I finally got Dalton out was to go to Judge Kelleher. Dalton had made a name for himself in prison. He was the first federal prisoner in the history of the Bureau of Prisons to take and pass a certified dental technician course that was being offered at the prison.
Wow.
So they were using him through varying federal prisons to do the dental work. He was very talented. He was very smart. And I took this great work project of his and I wrapped it up into a nice presentation and presented it to Judge Kelleher, who was the sentencing judge. And then I explained to Judge Kelleher what happened routinely at Dalton's parole hearings. I also explained that this was a true case of rehabilitation. And it took Kelleher a while, but he actually called me back and he agreed with me.
And he never mixes up the Novocaine with the cocaine. Like that.
Well, he doesn't do work anymore. But so once Dalton was released, I hadn't talked to Chris in, 8 years, almost 10 years.
Okay.
And I was living in San Francisco and I thought, well, maybe now's the time to send him a little note. So I sent him a little note card and I just said, I just want you to know that Dalton's being paroled. This is what I did. Is it your turn yet? And within a week, I had a letter back, and he was on the phone, and that was in 1995. And so we stayed in contact from that moment on.
And when did he finally get out?
He was released on September 16th, 2002, and we were married on October 19th, 2002.
Oh, and what was the ceremony like?
Quiet. Quiet and hidden. It was the first time in 25 years that he'd seen most of his siblings.
Wow.
And so it was a very emotional day. My family was there. His family was there. We had about 68 friends and family. Our friend, Pat Miller, who is kind of the guy who invented motion capture and all that, has a great home in Occidental, California. And we were married in his front yard in a stand of redwoods in front of a little stream.
We've only got about 5 more minutes to talk about American Sons, the untold story of the Falcon and the Snowman. And then we're going to come back. We're going to be joined by Kristen Beck, who's a former Navy SEAL, Hero to Zero, Navy SEAL's true life journey. What is your life like? Does Christopher work? Is he able to work?
He and David Lee, who is Dalton Lee's brother, have a business in Oregon. They did flip houses for a while, and they have property now, and they're running another business, and he's very successful.
And David Lee, he knew him his whole life back when they were kids and stuff too?
Absolutely.
Older brother or younger brother of
younger.
That's fascinating. Isn't that fascinating?
It is.
That he would be friends with the kid, the younger brother of the guy's partner and his big ass. Now, are they allowed to talk to each other? Probably not, right? No, there's no rules.
No, they are. They're neither. Nobody's on parole, so those parole laws go out the window. But Chris and Dalton have no contact.
And for just they're not interested or hard feelings.
I think that's Dalton's choice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Any idea why?
Well, sometimes you need to be right.
And what about Dalton now? What does he do for a living?
I don't know.
Really? Now, you know what? You're right. Because I remember when I first decided I wanted to do a show about this, there was no contact for him for anything. But I found Vince fun fairly easily. Mm-hmm. And I was able to get a hold of him.
I haven't spoken to Dalton since 1999.
Well, I hope he's doing well. It was a great.
So after 20 years of being best friends, I haven't spoken to him since 1999, and it's hard.
The one that got him out. Why would he be mad at you?
Well, I married Chris. That didn't help.
Really? Oh, come on. You got to forgive that.
Yeah.
Well, we're toward the end of the story here. What do you want to leave us with in all this?
The saving grace in my book. I mean, when people ask me about American Sons and how did that feel, it was very cathartic because I'd spent so much of my life working for these two. But the takeaway from that book that I hope that people see is redemption, rehabilitation, and hope, just hope. As any reader of the book knows, I went through my own journey during the period of time that I was walking the path with these two. And that was being diagnosed with stage 3B cancer and being told I was terminal.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I think that not giving up and just moving on a path to what I believed was helping other human beings. I think it saved me. It saved them. And I think that's always my takeaway from American Sons is just that positive energy and that commitment to another human being for no reason other than they just deserved it.
I can identify with that. I hear you. But what is going on now with your health? Are you okay?
I have been in remission now. This is my 6th year in remission after being diagnosed in 1996. I've had 4 recurrences, a bone marrow transplant, all that fun stuff. But this is my 6th year of being in remission. I never thought I'd hear that word.
Yeah, right. Thank God for that. Let's all hope and pray that everything keeps going well for you there.
Yeah, not a prayer, but yeah.
I know. I'm a prayer. We'll pray for you. Don't worry. My audience prays, man. We like to pray over here. Oh my goodness. Well, thank God for that. Thank God you're with us. And how's the relationship with you married someone out of prison? How's the ups and downs with that? How's that go?
Oh my God. Well, it's not that you marry somebody out of prison. It's that you marry somebody that, when you have a 22-year-old, and I say this for the entire criminal justice system, when you take a kid, 18, 19, 20, 21, and you put those people in prison and you hold them for 20 or 25 years and release them, mentally, they are still the age that you put them in prison.
Exactly.
So while Chris turned 65 last Friday, somewhere in there is still a 22-year-old who is just, bouncing off the walls.
That is so true. But listen, you can always tell them, hey, I got you out. I'll put you back in, right?
I've done that on a number of occasions. It doesn't work yet. Sorry.
Incredible story. American Sons, the untold story of the Falcon and the Snowman. It's written by Kate Boyce, Christopher Boyce, and also Vince Font, our friend here. And look up the old show, guys. Check out the show, the original show I did with Vince Font. I think we went on for 2 hours, went on every detail of this case. Books on Amazon. Do you got a website?
thefalconandthesnowman.com.
Okay. We'll be right back after these messages with more of Kate Boyce. We're going to be joined by Kristen Beck. A Hero to Zero, a Navy SEAL's true life journey, right after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. Emailrevealer.com. People ask me all the time, hey, Ed, are you still a private investigator? I sure am. Go to emailrevealer.com. We handle adoption investigations, infidelity investigations, where you give us your spouse's email address. We trace it back to online dating websites, catch them cheating online, email tracing, locate or identify somebody from as little as an anonymous email address. Someone owe you money? Back child support? We can find that deadbeat, locate his hidden assets, locate his hidden bank accounts, find his current place of employment, and even assist you in obtaining a judgment and recover that judgment for you. Emailrevealer.com. Digital forensics, computer forensics, cell phone forensics, recover deleted text messages, create a report that you can use in court. Emailrevealer.com, 800-572-9762.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with pure soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report, and they're going to check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions2, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions.
Hey, you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.